How's it going, everybody? And welcome back to our Cisco Enterprise series. In this video, we're going to pick up where we left off in the last video, which is going to be our BGP configuration of iBGP. So what we're going to be doing is in AS1, we're going to be doing a full mesh of peerings. So we're going to peer everybody to everybody else. And then in AS2, we're going to peer, I'm going to start off simple. We're going to do route reflector is going to be sitting on R61, and then I'm going to show you how to stand up R43 or XR43 as a route reflector and get that all stood up. So we're going to peer everybody to everybody else here. So it's going to look like a full mesh again, except for two different route reflectors. And then we're going to talk about the peering between the two. Now, this is going to be control plane only peerings that we're going to be doing, meaning we're not going to be doing any route advertisements. So my goal here, just so everybody has so I can level set, my goal is to get both iBGP or full mesh and route reflection stood up in this environment. And then once that's been stood up, we have a full understanding of how that process works. Then what we'll do is in a follow-on video, I will go to the individual edge devices. So there's a handful of them that we'll be messing around with. And then we'll go to say, some of the devices we're going to stand up BGP peerings on the customer side. Other side we'll do it on the provider side. We'll test out both provider independent and provider aggregated and how that kind of works. And then we'll take a look at next hop processing when we do that. So in this video, we're going to be focusing on getting all of the internal peerings up and running. Then we'll focus on eBGP. So right now, this video is going to be all about iBGP. The next video is going to be about eBGP, getting them all stood up. And then the follow-on video will be about getting next hop processing and getting reachability and how that'll come into play. So if you guys have any questions on that type of stuff, we'll leave them on the specific videos that they're on. But so with that being said, let me go ahead and pull up Secure CRT, bring this guy over, and then you and I are going to start walking through the config. I'm not going to Wireshark it. I will be debugging it. So Wireshark, it's just right now you're going to see a bunch of TCP updates. When we get into route advertisements and things like that, then we'll start doing some more Wireshark stuff. But for right now, debugs are where it's going to be at. So, because I'm going to be doing a lot of individual configs, I don't want to be, having to map on one particular interface over the other. So, where I'm going to start is on R26. Get that process started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to debug BGP, IPv4, and unicast updates. Actually, let me do keep alives. We'll do keep alives, and then we'll do let me see here, events. We'll talk more about groups, like peer groups and templates, later on when it comes to scaling BGP. That should be okay for right now. So, good enough for right now. Actually, I can do internal as well. Unicast internal. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go to global config. Right now we have BGP ASN 1. So we're typing the router BGP question mark. And as you can see, we have you can do the 4-byte ASN out of the gate here, but this is going to be the non-AS dot notation, or you can put it in dot notation out of the gate. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in here in BGP AS1. And then, as you can see here, we have a bunch of updates automatically triggering. So it's going to go and do a bunch of table updates. So as you can see, that was a lot. We literally just turned BGP on. That's it. So there we have that. So what I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go underneath here, and if I was to expand this out just a little bit, there's not a lot of options to configure right out of the gate, right? You have to be really underneath the individual processes in order to get more information. So there are two different types of deployment models for BGP. You've got what I'm underneath right now, which is the non-address family deployment. And what I mean by non-address family is I'm not going underneath the specific address family to activate a peering. What I am going to go do is I'm gonna leave the default. So if I do show run all section BGP, if I come down here towards the bottom, we're going to have right here BGP default IPv4 unicast. And what that basically means is that you're going to automatically try to form a IPv4 unicast peering with any neighbor statement I put into play. That's what's going to end up happening. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to do any address family specific config. So I'm going to leave the command enabled. I will change that in other routers so you guys can see both. XR does it out of the gate, so there's no point in me trying to demo it on XR. So let me go ahead and, if you want to know what the default configuration for BGP is, this is the initial configuration that you're going to have to be aware of. So we'll see that there is, let's see, the distance commands for BGP, the local preference 100, so on and so forth. And we can see the scan timer. So basically it's every minute the BGP scanner goes and tries to scan for new updates. So there's that. Graceful restart isn't here, which is good. I don't see it anyway. Enforce first AS, log neighbor changes, all that good stuff. So it says here we have client-to-client reflection is enabled. And then we have client-to-client reflection intra-cluster ID any. So it's basically allowing everything. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in neighbor. And the first thing I need to do is do show IP route OSPF, just to verify that we do have all of the routes in the routing table. So 27, 42, 60 are all there. So I'm going to type in neighbor, and I'm going to be doing loopback to loopback peering. So actually, yeah, I'm gonna for 26 to 27, I'll do a direct peering, but then for everybody else, I'll do a loopback, so you guys can see the difference. So it's gonna be neighbor of 1.26.27.27. Remote AS is gonna be 1. Okay. Now we can see that that is that. Now I'm gonna go over to 27 and do the exact same thing. So router BGP 1, neighbor of 1.26.27.26. Remote AS of 1. So after a moment or so, and this is a directly connected peering, so you guys can see what that looks like. We're going to give that a few moments to do its thing. The neighbor is up. If I do show iBGP summary, we're going to see that the peering is up and all that good stuff. Then we're going to go over here to 26, and we can see that the interface went back and forth, and we have a peering is up. Okay, now there's not a lot going on with the peering process. What we're going to be doing when we go to advertise routes on a follow-on video is you'll start to see a bunch of route advertisements come through. Now in 26, what I'm going to go do is I'm going to type in neighbor of 1.0.0.60 remote AS of 1. Hit the up arrow, hit the enter key. And then I'm going to hit the up arrow and remove remote AS out. I'm going to type in update dash source is going to be loopback 0. So when I do that, you're going to see, actually I should be able to do the debug for that too. So do debug BGP IPv4 unicast updates. I don't know if that, it might not work because I'm not actually advertising any routes. But anyway, I'm going to go over to 60 and do the exact same thing. Router, and okay, so in 60, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the address family specific deployment. So if I do show run, a router BGP 1, and if I type in do show run all pipe section BGP, come down here, remember we have the, where is it? The default IPv4 unicast. I'm going to turn this off. So I'm going to type in no BGP default IPv4 unicast. When I type this command in, that's going to force me to manually activate my BGP peering. So I'm going to type in neighbor 1.0.0.26 remote AS of 1. The update source is loopback 0. Now I'm just going to hang out here for a minute. I'm intentionally not going to turn it on and we're going to see that nothing happens. Like it's going to sit here, so do show iBGP sum, right? Nothing's even there. And if I do show run all, or do show run section BGP, the syntax is there, but you notice that the address family IPv4 is there. If I go to 26 and I do show run section BGP, notice there's no address family here. If you don't see an address family in the show run output, it's telling me that you're in non-address family specific config, where 60 is not the case. I turned BGP off, IPv4 unicast default off. So now I've got to go underneath the address family IPv4 unicast. I'm going to hit the up arrow a couple times to get back to here, and then I'm going to type in the command activate. And what will end up happening is I will form a peering. There it goes. So I did that. We're good to go. Go back to 26. We can see that 2060 added to group now has 2 members. Active state. We can see that the service is up. Everybody's happy. We go back to 60 and do show iBGP sum. I can see that the peering is up. Pretty straightforward stuff. So I've got 26 is peer to 27 and 60. Let's go ahead and go back to 26 and peer to 42 via the loopback. So I'm going to do the exact same thing here. I did it a second ago. I'm going to go over here, type in 42, and hit the update dash source loopback 0. Okay. Now there's a question: can you move from non-address family to address family specific? Yes, you can. And I'm going to talk about that here in just a moment once we have everything stood up. But the simple answer to that would just be to go, literally, all you have to do is type in address family IPv4 unicast or address family VPNv4 unicast, whatever it might be. You need unicast first before you can do any of these sub-address families. So we'll talk more about that later. So for right now, I'm not going to do it, but as soon as I do it, we're going to see the change. Let me go back over to, let's go to 42. We log in here, Rob and Cisco. Go to global config, router BGP 1, and then I have to come underneath here, and I have to specify the address family. So address family IPv4 unicast, and underneath here, I can do my neighbor. I can do my neighbor commands underneath here. Type in neighbor of 1.0.0.26, and then underneath here I type in remote AS of 1. The update dash source is loopback. Update dash source is loopback 0. Address family IPv4 unicast. And if I do a show config, that's the syntax. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to commit this. Give that a couple of moments to do its thing. So the peering should come up here momentarily. I do have a debug running at all times, so you'll see everything come up. So there we have that. So 26 is now up with that guy. So I'm going to do show iBGP summary, and I have a peering to each one of the routers. So now what I'm going to go do is I'm going to come down here and do show run section BGP, and you can see how that's configured. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in address family IPv4 unicast, and I'm going to do the same run, do show run section BGP, and now you can see that the address family configuration changed. That's literally all you had to do. There's no like upgrade CLI, there's no enable this, that, or the other. It just go underneath the specific address family, and boom, you're in good shape. So that's as simple as that. So if I do show iBGP sum, the peerings stayed up. It just, configuration wise, you change the output. That's it. Now, if you're curious, do show run all section BGP. That default IPv4 unicast configuration is still in place. So if I was to go activate more peerings, then I shouldn't have to go underneath IPv4 unicast, but and because this is there, I won't need to. It's only when this has been turned off, the highlighted line, it's only when this is turned off that I need to go manually turn on my BGP peerings. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're looking at the config. So if I go back here, so the syntax is very, very straightforward, right? Very, very simple. Okay, so now that I've done that, and I've got 26 config appeared to everybody else, let's go ahead and finish this config up. Let's go over here to 42. I'm going to exit out of here, and I'm going to exit out of here. I'm going to do show run BGP, or pipe section BGP. What is it? Begin BGP. Okay, so I'm going to type in neighbor 1.0.neighbor 1.0.0.27. Remote AS is 1. Update dash source is loopback 0. And then I'm going to hit the up arrow a couple times. I'm going to, or I can do the address family IPv4 unicast. And I don't need to do the activate command on XR, which is one of the nice parts. I can exit out of here though, and I have to exit out twice. So I'm going to go to 27, I'm going to go to 60. Go to loopback 0, and then address family IPv4 unicast. And then I've got 26, 27, and 60 now configured. If I do a show config, that's what it's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to commit that config. Do show run pipe begin router BGP. That's my configuration, pretty straightforward. Now I'm going to go to 27 and do the exact same thing. I'm going to go underneath here, I'm going to type in neighbor of 1.0.0.42 remote AS 1 update source loopback 0, and then address, and then I'll do 60, and then I will do the update dash source loopback 0, just like that. Do show run pipe section BGP. Fairly straightforward configuration, and after some time I should start to form peerings with 42. 42 is already up, sorry, and I need to go configure 60 as well. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to neighbor. I've already got 26 done, so I need to do 1.0.0.42 remote AS 1 update dash source loopback 0. And what I tend to do is I like to do all the individual peering specific configuration first. So I'll do 27. Update dash source loopback 0. And then we'll go to address family IPv4 unicast. And then I'll grab 42, activate, and I'll grab 27 and activate that. All right. So that is that. So now if I do show IPBGP sum, I have peerings to everybody, but if I remove the summary command and hit the enter key, I'm not exchanging any routes. Again, this is straight control plane. I am just forming peerings. I'm not advertising anything. Nothing's coming and going. Now, the question I get a lot is, well, what if I do already have routes in BGP being advertised? How do I prevent, if I'm like in a migration perspective or what have you, or I'm not ready to actually advertise anything? And the simple answer to that is you can do filtering. So you can use a prefix list and just do a deny everything, or you can use a route map and say deny X routes in, or just do a route map deny and apply that inbound so that BGP won't receive any routes inbound. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that, but a route map is going to be the key piece to that. So that's going to be where that would come into play. And we'll talk more about that when we get into traffic engineering and stuff like that. So as of right now, we have all 4 of our routers are fully meshed. So if you notice, we have 3 peerings. So the way that this would look from a config is 26 to 60, 26 to 42, 26 to 27, 27 to 42, 27 to 26, 27 to 60. Then we have 60 to 26, 60 to 27, 60 to 42. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know why I use my mouse for this and not my pen tool, but you get the point. So I have 6 total peerings. And it didn't take me very long to do that, right? It was just a matter of going through the steps. So now that we've done that, the next one is going to be going over and we'll do 61 and we'll set up route reflection to all 3 of the routers, and we'll do the same thing on XR43 and show you the XR version of the config. So the cool thing about it is iOS and iOS XE, the syntax is the same. There's minor differences on specific capabilities that like access lists that XE won't support that iOS will, stuff like that, but specifically nuanced things. So what I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go and show you the route reflector design on AS2, and then we'll go from there. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do undebug. And there's really not a whole lot to talk about here, right? It's just a scan timer, stuff like that. I'm just going to undebug all, so we're not wasting a bunch of CPU on kind of pointless outputs. Things will get much more interesting once we start doing route propagation. You'll start to see routes come through and things like that. That's when things will get more interesting. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to go over here to 61. I'm going to hit the enter key a couple times. I am going to turn off BGP default IPv4. So I'm going to type in router BGP2 and type in no BGP default IPv4 unicast. So I do that, I'm automatically going to have to activate every one of my peerings. So the other thing that I'm tempted to show you is the peer group option. Now the peer group, and we haven't really talked about configuration scalability, but since we're right here, I might as well. Peer group configuration, so if we go back over here to say 60, and I do show run section BGP, it doesn't look like a lot of configuration. But just imagine for a moment if I had 100 different peers. So I'd have to do the same configuration 100 different times. Now imagine a password or any number of other capabilities that I want to add. I'd have to do that over and over and over again. What a peer group's job is to do is to create a template of sorts. There's literally the template option as well, but it's a completely different syntax. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group configuration. So I'll group the remote AS config. I will group the update source loopback 0. I group the password configuration. All of that would be tied to a group called a peer group that then you would associate to a neighbor configuration. And then that neighbor configuration would be applied everywhere. Anywhere that peer group is applied on a per neighbor basis, all the remote AS, update source, password stuff, that would be all associated as well. I'm going to go ahead and do that because I'm right here. I'm going to type in neighbor, and if you type in the tag, this is going to be where the peer group comes in. So it's going to be, you have BGP, and then you have the option, actually it's going to be neighbor, and then you have the tag. So I'm going to just call this iBGP question mark, and then what are the options that I want to do? So you have your remote AS, you have your update source, you have your password, you have your iBGP multi-hop, you have your cluster ID, BMP activate if you're going to do BGP monitoring, stuff like that. So I'm going to type in remote AS 1, create the peer group. So neighbor, oh that's right, iBGP peer group, and then you'll be able to do this. There, so peer group first, and then we'll do update source loopback 0, and then we'll do password is going to be Cisco 123. Now do show run section BGP. So all of this configuration will be attached to, so you get the remote AS, the password, the update source, that'll all be tied to this iBGP peer group. So now when I go to type in neighbor of 2.0.0. Actually, let me just double check here. Do show IP route EIGRP. So I've got 28, 29, and 43. Perfect. So I'm going to type in neighbor 2.0.0.28. And then I would come in here and I would use the command peer group and then iBGP. And the cool thing is I can do this on a per peering basis. So I can come underneath here and I can do the same thing and say 43 and then 29. It speeds up the configuration. Now the config is not done. Do show run section BGP. That's the syntax. And all of this config right here just got associated to each one of these neighbors. The next thing I have to go do is I have to go underneath the address family, IPv4 unicast. And then what I'll do is underneath the neighbor iBGP, I will come underneath here and I will set right here. It says route reflector client. And it says invalid command, not an internal neighbor, which is actually kind of funny because when you do a neighbor of 2.0.0.28 and you type in activate and do show run section BGP, you will end up, where do I have to do the neighbor iBGP peer group and then neighbor iBGP route reflector client? Yeah, that's where I'm like kind of confused as to why it's giving me a hard time. But because you do the route reflector client configuration and underneath here, not an internal neighbor. Oh, okay. You know what? I didn't notice this before. This right here. So I have to go exit out of here, and I have to type in neighbor iBGP remote AS is 2. Do show run section BGP. I didn't even notice that before. So let me go back underneath address family IPv4 unicast, and then we're going to see now we're getting a kickback. It says no MD5 digest. So we'll type in neighbor iBGP route reflector client. There. Do show run section BGP, and there's the addition of that. So now I just type in neighbor 2.0.0.29 activate, and I'll do 43. Now when I do this, what you're going to see is you'll start to get a kickback from each one of the neighbors. Do show run section BGP. They will all inherit the route reflector configuration through even though I didn't associate it, they're all going to get it. Now if I go over here to say 28 and I type in router BGP2, I type in no BGP default IPv4, I type in neighbor of 2.0.0.61 remote AS of 2, and then update source loopback 0. I type in address family IPv4 unicast, and then I activate. Well, actually, I need to exit out here and hit the up arrow once and say password is Cisco123. The peering should come up here momentarily. It's up now. If I do show iBGP summary, the peering is up, but if I do show BGP IPv4 unicast neighbor of 2.0.0.28, I am looking for right here, route reflector client. I want to make sure that he's a client. So the cool thing now is I go back to 28 and I do show run section BGP. I can literally just take this config and copy and paste it into 29. Right click, paste. And then the peering is up right away. Because you're only peering to one other peer, and that's going to be 61. So it makes it very, very easy in that respect. So 61 is now up, 29 is up. The only thing left to figure out is going to be 43. 43 is going to be just as simple, Rob and Cisco. Go to global config, router BGP2. I'm going to type in neighbor of 2.0.0.61, remote AS of 2, update source is loopback 0, password is Cisco 123, and then address family IPv4 unicast. I'm going to go ahead and commit that config. And then here momentarily there is an error. Show config failed. Oh, I did not. So the problem that it's okay. So I'm actually glad I did this. So do show run section router BGP. I'm sorry, begin. I keep forgetting that it's begin. So I have to come over here and I have to go underneath the show config. So what it's basically telling me is you turned on the address family without turning it on globally. You turned it on at the neighbor level, but you never turned it on at the AF or at the global level of BGP. So I have to type in here address family IPv4 unicast. Show config again, and then commit this time, and it goes right through. So pretty straightforward stuff. Now what I'm going to go do is I'm going to go back over here to 61 just to verify that it's up. 43 should be up here momentarily. There it is. Now do show BGP IPv4 unicast summary. I have all three of my peerings up in AS2. Everybody's happy. Now I am not going to manipulate the cluster ID because I could do that here. It's called BGP, and then you have the cluster ID, and then set whatever value you want. So right now I'm not going to mess with them. What I am going to go do is I am going to go to 43 and 29, 61, and 28. I'm going to make them route reflector clients. So we'll have two different route reflectors, and we'll see exactly how the propagation of routes will come in later on down the road when we start doing all of our peerings and getting all that type of stuff set up. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go to 43. I'm going to exit out of here. Neighbor of 2.0.0.29, and what I'll do here is I have the neighbor, and then I can do I'm sorry, it's not that. You don't have the option of a peer group in XR. You have the option of a neighbor group, a session group, or an address family group. And then when you're doing this, my opinion on it is neighbor first, and then address family, because you're going to do it specific to that. I've never really used a session group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the neighbor dash group is going to be iBGP, and then I'm going to hit the enter key to go underneath the config, and I'm going to say remote AS is 2, the update dash source is going to be loopback 0, and then the password is going to be Cisco 123. I'm going to exit out of the neighbor group. I'm going to type in AF dash group is going to be IPv4, and then you have to specify address family and then IPv4 unicast, and then you can come underneath here and type in route reflector client. Exit out of there. Show config. Pretty straightforward stuff so far, right? Nothing overly complicated. So now I'm going to type in neighbor of 2.0.0.29. I'm going to type underneath here, go down a little bit, you're going to have the inherit command. So it's going to be, where is it? No, it's going to be, what is that command? It is apply group. Apply group. Group name is going to be, what did I name it? I forgot. iBGP. iBGP. Okay, so that's actually not the, where is it that, In iOS, it's an inherit template. I'm not sure why it's giving me a hard time with that. Neighbor 2.0.0.29. Oh, use, that's right, neighbor group. That's right, I forgot about that. And the neighbor group is going to be iBGP. And then we're going to be able to do the same thing with 28. Use neighbor group iBGP. And then we're going to do the same thing with 61. And then we're going to go underneath address family, IPv4 unicast. And then we'll say, we'll use AF group IPv4, and we'll do a, well, I'll do that per neighbor. So show config. Right, so we've done that for 61. We'll need to go back to 29. Neighbor, address family IPv4 unicast, and then repeat the process for 29. So if we do a show config, that's what the syntax is going to look like. So use IPv4. We have our groups applied. Everything looks pretty good. So we have our IPv4 AFI. We have our iBGP neighbor group. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on we have to do, yeah, we should be fine. So we're doing route reflector client. I'm going to go ahead and commit that config. And then we're going to have to go over to 28. And for neighbor of 2.0.0.43, we're going to say remote AS of 2. The update source is going to be loopback 0. The password is going to be Cisco 123. And then the IPv4 unicast, we'll do an activate. 43, activate. And that should form a peering. There it goes. So do show run section BGP. So I'm going to grab Notepad out real quick. Not Notepad++, regular Notepad. Notepad. And I'm going to grab all this syntax right here, paste it into this guy, and I'm going to get rid of 61 for my syntax. And then I'm going to repeat this process over on 29. And right click, paste it in. 43 should have appearing here momentarily. And 61 will as well. The differences between these two is that do show run pipe section BGP. 43 is already a client of 61, but, well, actually, and 61 will be a client of 43. Or 43, yeah, 61 will be a client of 43. So show BGP IPv4 unicast neighbor of 2.0.0.61. It'll be right here, route reflector client. Now, again, we won't have any type of scenarios where the route propagation is going to happen right away. The next video, we're going to do all of our iBGP peerings and get them all stood up. We'll take a look at route propagation and things like that, and then we'll take a look at data plane, next hop processing in the video after that. Or it might even be the same video. I'm not really sure yet. But that'll be essentially what you need to be aware of in terms of that. So we have that going for us. And you won't be able to see any originator ID or cluster ID stuff yet because there's no routes. So again, we're still straight control plane. It's like somebody told us and said, hey, we need you to stand a whole BGP environment up, but don't route it. Don't use it for routing yet. Like, okay, cool. So that is pretty much where we're at this moment. I want to thank you guys for stopping by and hanging out with me in this video. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, drop that puppy in the video or the comment section below. If you haven't already done so, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch all of you fine people in the next video.